Smash that like button and subscribe if you want to sleep easy tonight, because what we're diving into is enough to keep even the most seasoned insomniac wide awake. Ever heard about the medieval practice of trial by ordeal? Imagine being dunked in cold water to prove your innocence. Spoiler alert, if you floated, you were guilty. Talk about a sinking feeling, literally. But that's just the tip of our historical iceberg of horrors. Did you know that in ancient Rome, some citizens believed that the best way to ward off evil was to wear a necklace made of testicles? Yes, you heard that right. And if you thought the Middle Ages were all knights and chivalry, think again. How about public executions as entertainment? With a side of roasted rat, perhaps. And what about the bizarre sexual customs of the past? Picture this: in ancient Greece, men would gather for symposia, basically a drinking party where discussions about philosophy often took a hard left into, shall we say, less intellectual activities. Who knew Socrates had such wild social gatherings? Let's not forget the disasters: the Great Fire of London in 1666, which turned a bustling city into a charred wasteland in just 4 days. Or the bizarre case of the dancing plague of 1518, where people just couldn't stop moving, literally dancing themselves to death. So, are you ready for some jaw-dropping facts, specific dates, and a few too many "what were they thinking" moments? Because trust me, you're going to want to keep that loop feature on, so this episode plays until you can't keep your eyes open any longer. Buckle up, history is about to get weird. In the grand tapestry of history, where great battles and epic voyages are often the main threads, one might be tempted to overlook the unsung heroes of nautical logistics, the Viking Longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Let's embark on a voyage through the riveting, albeit uneventful, history of this underappreciated maritime art. Hashtag Chapter 1, The Dawn of the Anchor Rope, circa 790 AD, Norway. Picture it: the year is 790 AD, and the Vikings are just beginning to make their mark on history. They're not just marauding and pillaging, they're also tangled in a mess of ropes. It was a simpler time, one where the term "knotty problem" was taken quite literally. The earliest records, inscribed on rune stones, likely by a very bored scribe, indicate that the first longship anchors were made of hefty stones, tied to the ship with lengths of hemp rope measuring approximately 30 feet. Now, one might wonder, how did they manage to anchor their ships without a proper protocol? Well, the answer is, they didn't. The Viking longship, the dragon-headed marvel of the seas, was more than capable of ferrying warriors across the North Sea, yet its crew often found itself embroiled in a veritable spaghetti of rope when attempting to retrieve the anchor. Hashtag Chapter 2, The Great Untangling Crisis, circa 850 AD, Dublin. Fast forward to 850 AD in Dublin, where the Viking settlers were beginning to establish their foothold in the Irish Sea. One fateful day, during what has since been dubbed the Great Untangling Crisis, a certain Eric the Unlucky found himself in a particularly sticky situation. As Eric attempted to haul his anchor up, he inadvertently created a macrame masterpiece of rope entanglement that would leave even the most skilled artisan astounded. Eyewitnesses claim it took an entire afternoon, a barrel of mead, and the combined efforts of 3 burly Norsemen to free the anchor from its fibrous prison. Could this be the moment history first saw the birth of an untangling protocol? Or did they simply decide that drinking heavily was the only viable solution? Chapter 3, The Codification of Knotting, circa 900 AD, Iceland. By 900 AD, Viking culture had expanded to include a rather impressive array of knots. From the bowline to the clove hitch, each knot had a purpose, yet still, the art of untangling remained woefully underdeveloped. In Iceland, a group of enterprising women known as the Knotty Norns began to draft a set of untangling protocols. These protocols included 1. The 3-step approach. Step 1. Assess the situation. Is the rope merely twisted, or is it hopelessly knotted? Step 2. Offer a sacrifice to the sea gods. A small fish or a slice of bread would suffice, no need to go overboard. Step 3. Engage in a collaborative effort, because every good Viking knows that teamwork makes the dream work, especially when vodka is involved. 2. The tool assessment. Recommended tools included a trusty dagger, a wooden stick for poking, and, if all else failed, a willing shipmate to blame. One has to wonder, did these protocols actually help, or were they just a way to distract from the inevitable chaos that ensued every time an anchor was dropped? Chapter 4, The Anchor Rope Untangling League, circa 950 AD, Norway. By 950 AD, the untangling protocols had spread like wildfire throughout the Viking territories. It was during this time that the first ever Anchor Rope Untangling League was founded in Norway. Membership consisted of local fishermen, sailors, and the occasional disgruntled wife who had grown tired of her husband's perpetual entanglement woes. The league met weekly to discuss their latest untangling strategies, share stories of past blunders, and, naturally, drink copious amounts of ale. Some notable meetings included Meeting #3, the day the entire fleet became one giant knot, a cautionary tale about the dangers of too many anchors dropped at once. Meeting #7, the legendary untangling of 956, where Bjorn the Bold was awarded the title of Master Untangler, after single-handedly rescuing 5 anchors from the grip of the sea. But let's be honest, did they ever really improve their technique, or was it just an elaborate excuse for a good time? Chapter 5, The Anchor Rope Untangling Manual, circa 1000 AD, Greenland. By the turn of the millennium, Viking culture had grown to include a proliferation of manuals and guides, including the famous Anchor Rope Untangling Manual, which was circulated among seafarers. This manual was filled with diagrams, illustrations, and the occasional ode to Odin, instructing sailors on proper untangling techniques. Some notable tips from the manual included the yank and pray technique, a favorite among the less patient crew members. This method involved pulling the rope with all one's might while simultaneously shouting a prayer to the gods for mercy. The distraction method, a time-tested approach where one crew member would distract the other with tales of glorious battles while secretly trying to unravel the rope behind their back. Is it possible that these methods were more about mental diversion than actual practicality? Chapter 6, The Decline of the Untangling Protocols, circa 1100 AD, Norway. By 1100 AD, the Viking Age began to wane, and with it, the need for complex anchor rope untangling protocols. As trade routes opened and the longships became less about raiding and more about commerce, the Viking sailors began to develop more efficient anchoring systems. In a shocking twist of fate, the untangling protocols fell out of favor. Historians speculate that this decline was due to a combination of societal evolution and the rising popularity of lighter, more manageable anchor ropes made from flax instead of the traditional, stubborn hemp. Did the Vikings abandon their time-honored traditions for the sake of convenience? It seems they were willing to sacrifice a bit of their nautical heritage for a little less hassle. Chapter 7, The Last Untangling Saga, circa 1200 AD, Norway. Fast forward to 1200 AD, where the last recorded instance of an epic rope untangling adventure occurred. In the small village of Gemmet, a local fisherman named Olaf the Unfortunate found himself in a bind, quite literally, when his anchor rope became hopelessly tangled. As villagers gathered to witness the spectacle, Olaf, with his characteristic flair, decided to turn the event into an impromptu festival. They held competitions to see who could untangle their ropes the fastest, complete with prizes of meat and fish. In a stunning twist, the Untangling Festival became an annual event, complete with music, dancing, and a grand feast, ensuring that the art of untangling was celebrated rather than relegated to mere protocol. Can you imagine a world where the mundane act of untangling ropes became a cause for celebration? A fitting end to the saga of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Epilogue, Reflections on the Untangling Legacy. As we conclude our journey through the uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols, we're left with a lingering question: is there a lesson to be learned in this seemingly trivial saga? Perhaps it's that even the most mundane aspects of life can hold stories worth telling. Or maybe it's that when faced with a knotty problem, a little creativity and camaraderie can go a long way. So, the next time you find yourself entangled in a mess, be it figurative or literal, remember the Vikings. They may not have mastered the art of untangling, but they certainly knew how to turn a knotty situation into a good time. Now, if only they had invented wine instead of mead, their untangling protocols might have gone down in history as the most fun a Viking ever had while getting tangled. Cheers to that. The Uneventful History of Viking Longship Anchor Rope Untangling Protocols. Introduction. The Unlikely Origins of a Tangle. In the grand tapestry of Viking life, where fierce raids and epic sagas often overshadow the mundane, one could easily overlook the unsung hero of maritime logistics, the anchor rope untangling protocols. While not as glamorous as pillaging or exploring new lands, these protocols were foundational to the efficiency and safety of Viking longships. In the spirit of shedding light on the less celebrated aspects of Viking culture, we embark on a brisk journey through the construction methods, bureaucratic rules, roles, and technical specifications surrounding the art of untangling longship anchor ropes. ###### Construction methods and materials, 800 to 1000 AD. The Viking longship, a marvel of engineering, required anchor ropes that could withstand the rough seas and the intense demands of seafaring life. Crafted primarily from local materials, these ropes were often made from three primary fibers. 1. Hemp, the go-to material for many Viking craftsmen. Hemp was favored for its strength and durability. The process of turning hemp into rope involved several steps. Harvesting. Hemp was harvested in late summer, ensuring optimal fiber quality. Retting. The harvested plants were submerged in water to soften the fibers, a method that could take several weeks. Spinning. Fibers were twisted into strands, with 3 strands typically twisted together to form a robust rope. 2. Flax. Another strong contender, flax fibers were often used for smaller ropes and rigging. The process mirrored that of hemp but required a more careful hand due to the finer nature of the fibers. 3. Animal hides. In a pinch, Viking sailors would also use strips of animal hide, particularly from oxen or horses. While less durable, these makeshift ropes served well in emergencies. ##### Costs of rope production. The cost of producing these ropes varied significantly based on material and labor. A rough estimate for a standard length of hemp rope, 50 meters, would be around 2 to 3 silver coins, a sum that could either break the bank for a struggling farmer or be pocket change for a prosperous chieftain. Hemp rope, 2 to 3 silver coins for 50 meters. Flax rope, 4 to 5 silver coins for similar lengths, given the more labor-intensive process. Hide rope, 1 silver coin, mostly used in emergencies or for smaller vessels. In a society where silver often dictated status, the quality of rope could even be a point of pride. As one Viking once quipped, "A good rope is worth its weight in gold, but a tangle? That's just a bad omen." #### Bureaucratic rules and punishments. Viking society, while often perceived as chaotic, had its fair share of bureaucratic measures, especially concerning maritime operations. The untangling of anchor ropes became a matter of naval protocol to ensure efficiency and safety. Notable rules included: 1. The untangling mandate. Upon docking, all crew members were required to untangle anchor ropes within the first hour. Failure to comply could result in being sent to the tangle of shame, a designated area by the ship where offenders had to untangle knots under the watchful eyes of their peers. 2. Inspection protocols. Before any voyage, a designated rope master would inspect the anchor ropes. If found tangled or frayed, the crew faced a fine of 1 silver coin per rope deemed unfit. 3. Documentation of tangles. A formal record was maintained of any significant tangles encountered, with the intent of refining methods and avoiding future mishaps. This record was often a source of mockery among seafarers. One might jest, You've got to be a real sailor to have your name on the tangle log twice. ##### roles and job descriptions. In the intricate hierarchy of a Viking longship crew, several key roles were specifically dedicated to the management of ropes, particularly anchor ropes. 1. Rope Master, the head honcho of all things rope-related. This individual was responsible for the maintenance, inspection, and untangling protocols of all shipboard ropes. With a keen eye for detail and a sense of humor, he often reminded the crew, there's no knot too tough when you've got a rope master on deck. 2. Deckhands, the backbone of the crew. Deckhands were responsible for the day-to-day handling of ropes, including anchoring and untangling. Each deckhand was trained in specific knot-tying techniques and untangling methods, often learning through a series of practical demonstrations and, occasionally, humorous tales of previous failures. 3. Tangle Scout, a specialized role that dealt exclusively with the retrieval of lost anchor ropes from the depths. These scouts were often the bravest of the crew, given the unpredictable nature of underwater tangles. When things went awry, it was the tangle scout who would emerge from the water, dripping and triumphant, having retrieved a lost rope, much to the crew's applause. 4. The scribe, responsible for keeping records of all tangle incidents, inspections, and rope statuses. The scribe also noted any amusing anecdotes related to tangling incidents, ensuring that the lore of the ropes lived on for future generations. ##### Technical specifications and inventories. The efficiency of Viking longships hinged on the technical specifications of their ropes. Key specifications included: diameter. Ropes generally ranged from 2 to 5 centimeters in diameter, depending on their use. Thicker ropes were reserved for anchoring while thinner varieties were used for rigging. Length. Standard anchor ropes were typically around 100 meters long, allowing for substantial depth when anchoring in variable seabeds. Breaking strain. A well-made hemp rope could withstand a breaking strain of approximately 1,000 kilograms, making it vital for anchoring large longships during stormy weather. Knot types. The most popular knots used included the bowline knot for secure loops and the clove hitch for fastening the rope to the anchor itself. A well-tied knot could mean the difference between a calm night or a rather bumpy ride. Every longship carried an inventory of ropes, often catalogued in meticulous detail. A sample inventory might include 10 lengths of hemp rope, 50 meters each. 5 lengths of flax rope, 30 meters each. 3 lengths of hide rope, 20 meters each. Each entry was followed by a note on the rope's condition, often accompanied by a cheeky remark about the last time someone got tangled up in a mess. ##### The Tangle Tales, Anecdotes of the Ropes. While the protocols may seem serious, the Viking sailors had a knack for humor, even in the face of mundane tasks. One favorite tale involved a particularly ambitious deckhand named Bjorn, who claimed he could untangle any knot in under a minute. His bravado led to a challenge, where he faced a notorious anchor rope known as the Kraken. After a good hour of wrestling with the rope, he sheepishly returned to the crew, muttering, "Well, I guess the Kraken won this round." That incident only added to the ship's lore, ensuring that Bjorn's name would be forever linked with the legendary Tangle. Conclusion, the legacy of untangling ropes. In the grand scheme of Viking history, one might argue that the protocols surrounding anchor rope untangling were not as glamorous as their seafaring exploits, but they certainly played a pivotal role in the safety and efficiency of their maritime endeavors. The construction methods, bureaucratic rules, roles, and technical specifications all contributed to a robust system that ensured the Vikings maintained their reputation as skilled navigators and seafarers. So, the next time you envision a Viking longship slicing through the waves, spare a thought for the unsung heroes of the anchor rope. Their untangling protocols might not make the sagas, but they were undoubtedly the lifeblood of Viking maritime success, one knot at a time. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Introduction. In the grand tapestry of Viking maritime endeavors, one might be forgiven for overlooking the intricate protocols governing the untangling of anchor ropes. Yet, this seemingly mundane task was the unsung hero of Norse seafaring, a crucial element in the success of longship voyages. This detailed exploration will delve into the construction methods, materials, bureaucratic rules, roles, technical specifications, and inventories that surrounded the untangling of anchor ropes, with a few witty asides thrown in for good measure. Construction methods and materials. #1. Rope construction. The Viking anchor rope, or draker, was primarily crafted from natural fibers. The predominant materials used in its construction included hemp sourced from the fields of Norway and Denmark. Hemp fibers were prized for their durability and resistance to saltwater degradation. A typical rope would consist of several strands twisted together, often achieving a diameter of 2 to 3 inches. Flax less commonly used. Flax was a softer alternative found in the southern regions. It provided a lighter option for smaller vessels but lacked the robust strength of hemp. Animal hides in emergencies, Viking sailors would resort to braiding strips of animal hides, though such makeshift ropes were typically a last resort. #2. Construction costs. The costs associated with crafting these ropes were significant. Estimates from the 9th century suggest that a longship's anchor rope could range from 12 to 20 silver dirhams, depending on the length and quality of materials. The average length of an anchor rope was about 150 feet, enough to secure even the largest Viking longships. #3. Techniques. Rope making was a communal task, often performed in the longhouse by skilled women known as ropewrights. They would twist fibers using a rudimentary spindle, a process that could take hours or even days depending on the rope's length and complexity. Note, while Viking women were often depicted as fierce shield maidens, they were also adept at ensuring that their men had tangle-free anchor ropes. #Bureaucratic rules and punishments. 1. The Maritime Code. As with any organized society, the Vikings had their share of bureaucratic regulations concerning anchor rope management. The Viking Maritime Code, established around 845 AD, outlined specific protocols for the handling and untangling of anchor ropes. Key rules included daily inspections. Each ship's crew was required to inspect their anchor ropes daily, ensuring no tangles or frays that could jeopardize a mooring. Tangle-free policy. A strict, no tangles policy was enforced. If a ship's crew was found to have faulty or tangled ropes during a seafaring inspection, they could face significant penalties. #2. Punishments. The punishments for failing to adhere to these rules could be harsh. Fines. The offending crew could be fined 2 sheep or a goat, a significant loss for a Viking household. Public shaming. In more severe cases, the crew might face public shaming, which could involve being paraded through the village while carrying the offending rope. Rope breaking ceremony. For particularly egregious offenses, a rope breaking ceremony was held, where the crew would have to cut their own anchor rope in front of their peers, symbolically severing their connection to the sea. One might say that Viking bureaucracy had its own way of tangling individuals in red tape. Roles and job descriptions. #1. Shipmaster, skipper. The shipmaster, or skipari, held ultimate responsibility for the vessel and its crew. His duties included overseeing the maintenance of the anchor rope, conducting inspections and ensuring compliance with the Maritime Code, leading untangling efforts during emergencies. #2. Ropewright, rocker. The ropewright was a crucial role, particularly among the women of the village. Responsibilities included crafting and repairing anchor ropes, maintaining an inventory of rope supplies, training younger members of the crew in rope management techniques. #3. Deckhand, schmauer. Deckhands were the backbone of the crew, performing essential tasks such as handling the anchor during mooring, assisting in the untangling process when necessary, reporting any issues with the anchor rope to the shipmaster. #4. Scribe, Rithari. In larger ships, a scribe would be employed to document all maritime activities, including recording daily inspections of the anchor rope, noting any fines or punishments related to rope tangling, maintaining a logbook of supplies used for rope repairs. Technical specs and inventories. #1. Technical specifications. Viking longship anchor ropes were not just simple lengths of fiber, they adhered to specific technical standards that ensured their effectiveness. Length typically between 100 to 200 feet depending on the size of the vessel. Diameter * average rope diameter ranged from 2 to 3 inches, with heavier ships using thicker ropes. Breaking strength * a well-crafted Viking anchor rope could withstand a force of over 1,000 pounds, making it essential for holding the ship steady during storms. #######2 Inventories. Maintaining an accurate inventory of rope supplies was critical to a ship's operation. Each crew member was responsible for verifying length of rope on board. A daily check ensured that the full length of the anchor rope was present and accounted for. Condition of rope * regular assessments for fraying or wear were documented. Replacement supplies * a well-stocked supply of hemp and flax fibers was essential, with each ship carrying at least enough materials for one full replacement of the anchor rope. In Viking households, the phrase, "a tangled rope is a tangled life," was often heard, though it usually referred to more than just nautical matters. #####conclusion. The protocols surrounding the untangling of anchor ropes may appear uneventful at first glance, but they represent a meticulous system that underscored the larger framework of Viking maritime culture. From the construction of sturdy ropes to the bureaucratic rules and roles that ensured their maintenance, every detail played a part in the success of Viking exploration and trade. As we reflect on the interplay between practicality and governance in this ancient society, we can appreciate that even the simplest tasks, like untangling an anchor rope, were woven into the broader narrative of Viking life. Who knew that such a seemingly trivial matter could be so rich in history? After all, history is often found in the details, even if those details are just knots in a rope. While the Viking longship has sailed into the annals of history, the protocols for untangling anchor ropes remind us that every adventure begins with a firm knot, one that, ideally, won't need untangling. ###The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. #####Introduction. In the annals of maritime history, few topics are as thrilling as the untangling of Viking longship anchor ropes. While the Viking Age, 793 to 1066 AD, is often romanticized for its epic voyages and fearsome warriors, a less glamorous yet equally vital aspect of this seafaring culture was the meticulous protocols surrounding the untangling of anchor ropes. This document will delve into the construction methods, materials, bureaucratic rules, roles, technical specifications, and inventories pertaining to these protocols, all while maintaining a brisk pace and sprinkling in humor where appropriate. ####construction methods and materials. 1. Materials ***. Natural fibers * Viking longship anchor ropes were primarily crafted from materials like hemp, flax, and even animal sinew. Hemp was particularly favored for its durability and resistance to rot, essential qualities for maritime applications. Braiding techniques * ropes were often braided using a 3-strand method, which not only increased strength but also provided flexibility, allowing for easier handling during untangling operations. 2. Construction process ***. Harvesting * The raw materials were harvested during summer months, particularly from the regions around the Baltic Sea, where the climate favored the growth of hemp. Processing * the fibers underwent a rigorous process of retting, washing, and drying before being spun into rope. This could take weeks, but hey, who doesn't love a good waiting game? Braiding * once the fibers were prepared, skilled artisans would employ a series of intricate braiding techniques, often taught through a rigorous apprenticeship that involved untangling many a knotted rope, much to the delight of their masters. 3. Costs ***. The cost of producing anchor rope was a significant investment for Viking shipbuilders. A single length of quality hemp rope could cost up to 10 silver pennies, about the equivalent of a cow in those times, which was a considerable amount considering that a skilled craftsman might earn 1 to 2 silver pennies per day. ##### Bureaucratic rules and punishments. 1. Regulations ****. The Untangling Code of 877 AD * codified under King Harold Fairhair, this collection of maritime laws established the proper procedures for untangling anchor ropes. It required that all crew members be trained in the art of rope management, lest they find themselves on the wrong end of a longship's oar. Safety protocols * The code mandated that untangling operations be conducted on calm waters to minimize the risk of capsizing. A wise Viking once quipped, "It's better to have a tangled rope than a tangled fate." 2. Punishments ****. Fines and penalties * failure to adhere to the untangling protocols could result in fines equivalent to half a day's wages. Persistent offenders might find themselves assigned to the galley for a week, where they would be responsible for preparing the crew's meals, an unenviable task, especially if they had to deal with the infamous pickled herring. Public shaming * in extreme cases, a sailor could face public shaming, being forced to wear a rope around their neck during the next voyage, a most embarrassing fate for any Viking warrior. ##### Roles and job descriptions. 1. The rope master, ropahera ****. Responsibilities * oversees all aspects of rope management, including the maintenance and untangling of anchor ropes. The rope master was akin to a maritime engineer, responsible for ensuring that ropes were in optimal condition before setting sail. Skills required * expertise in knot theory, an understanding of material properties, and the ability to remain calm while surrounded by a mass of knotted fibers. 2. The deckhands, Bjork ****. Responsibilities * The deckhands were tasked with the actual untangling process, working under the rope master's supervision. Their duties included inspecting the ropes for wear and tear and executing the untangling protocols with utmost precision. Skills required * physical strength, problem-solving skills, and the ability to work well in a team, especially when the team consisted of hot-headed Norsemen. 3. The scribe, skald ****. Responsibilities * documenting all procedures, incidents, and results of untangling operations. The scribe played a crucial role in ensuring that knowledge was passed down through generations. Skills required * proficiency in runes, an eye for detail, and a strong sense of humor to cope with the endless tales of tangled ropes. ###### Technical specs and inventories. 1. Rope specifications ***. Length * anchor ropes typically ranged from 50 to 100 fathoms, about 300 to 600 feet, depending on the size of the longship. Diameter ** The ropes had a diameter of 1 to 2 inches, providing a balance between strength and ease of handling. Load capacity ** A well-constructed anchor rope could withstand a load of up to 1,000 pounds, making it a critical component in anchoring a longship securely. 2. Inventory management ***. Rope storage * ropes were stored in designated areas on the ship, often coiled and hung from hooks to prevent tangling when not in use. The rope master conducted weekly inspections to ensure all ropes were in good condition. Replacement protocols * ropes that showed signs of wear were marked for replacement in the next port of call. The scribe maintained a ledger detailing the length and condition of each rope, along with the date of replacement. ##### The untangling protocols, step by step. 1. Initial assessment ***. Before beginning any untangling operation, the crew would conduct a comprehensive assessment of the tangled ropes. This included determining the extent of the tangles and identifying any knots that required special attention. 2. Team coordination ***. A briefing would take place with the entire crew, outlining the roles each member would play. The rope master would remind them, "A tangled rope is a test of our unity, let's not let it best us." 3. Untangling steps ***. Step 1 ** Carefully pull on the rope to identify the tightest sections. This initial pull would often reveal the most problematic knots. Step 2 * Use a tug and twist technique to gently loosen the knots. This method involved two crew members working in tandem, one pulling on the rope while the other twisted it. Step 3 * If a knot proved particularly stubborn, a knot buster, a specialized tool resembling a small hook, would be employed to pry apart the fibers without causing damage. Step 4 * Once the knots were untangled, the crew would inspect the rope for any signs of wear or damage and make repairs as necessary. 4. Documentation ***. Following the untangling operation, the scribe would document the process, noting any challenges faced and lessons learned. This ledger served as a valuable resource for future generations of Viking sailors. ##### Conclusion: A legacy of knots and protocols. Though often overshadowed by tales of raids and exploration, the protocols surrounding the untangling of Viking longship anchor ropes represent a fascinating aspect of maritime culture. The intricate construction methods, strict bureaucratic rules, defined roles, and technical specifications all contributed to a successful seafaring experience. In the grand tapestry of Viking history, where warriors were celebrated and conquests immortalized, the humble anchor rope stands as a testament to the practicality and resourcefulness of these seafaring folk. After all, in the world of Vikings, anything that keeps a ship anchored, even if it's a tangle of rope, deserves respect. And perhaps a good laugh, too, because if you can't laugh at your tangled fate, what can you laugh at? Hashtag the uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Hashtag introduction. In the grand tapestry of Viking history, where tales of dragons and gods often overshadow the mundane, the unassuming art of anchor rope untangling often goes unnoticed. While you might think that Viking warriors spent their days raiding and feasting, they also engaged in a surprisingly intricate system of protocols for maintaining their longship anchor ropes. This history, though uneventful, is rich with construction methods, bureaucratic nuances, and the everyday lives of those involved. Hashtag construction methods and materials, 793-1066 AD. The Viking longship was a marvel of engineering, but it was the anchor rope that often proved to be the unsung hero. 1. Materials used. Hemp, the primary material for anchor ropes, harvested from the fibers of the hemp plant. It was durable yet flexible, making it ideal for maritime applications. Flax, occasionally used in tandem with hemp for lighter ropes, especially in areas where speed was of the essence. Think of it as the fast fashion of rope. Leather, employed for securing and reinforcing knots, ensuring that the ropes could endure the rigors of rough seas. 2. Construction techniques. Twisting. Ropes were constructed by twisting fibers together, which created a strong, resilient product. This process was often overseen by a rope master, who was as revered in the village as a modern-day fashion designer. Braiding. A more complex method, braiding involved intertwining several strands to create a thicker, stronger rope. This was often employed for anchor ropes that would see frequent use. Waterproofing. Ropes were sometimes coated with natural oils to increase their resistance to water damage, a technique that predated modern waterproofing treatments by centuries. 3. Costs. A single longship anchor rope could cost the equivalent of several sheep, a valuable commodity in Viking culture. The price varied based on the quality of the materials and the complexity of the construction method. Yes, if you were an unfortunate farmer, you might have to choose between your sheep and a reliable anchor rope. Tough choices abound. Hashtag bureaucratic rules and punishments, 850-1100 AD. With the construction of these ropes came a rigid set of bureaucratic protocols to ensure that everything remained orderly. 1. Regulatory framework. The rope guilds, established in the late 9th century, these guilds regulated the production and quality of anchor ropes. They ensured that no subpar ropes would risk the lives of warriors at sea. Inspections. Regular inspections were mandated, and each rope had to pass a rigorous test of strength and flexibility before being approved for use. 2. Punishments for non-compliance. Fines. If a rope failed inspection, the rope maker could face a fine equivalent to 3 days' worth of mead. You can imagine the grimace on the faces of the guilty parties. Public shame. Repeat offenders could be subjected to public humiliation, often forced to wear a fail rope around their necks as a reminder of their shortcomings. 3. Documentation. Each approved rope was documented in guild logs, detailing its construction date, materials used, and the name of the rope maker. This was done to create accountability and traceability, early forms of rope credit scores, if you will. ##### roles and job descriptions, 900-1066 AD. Behind every successful anchor rope was a dedicated team of individuals, each fulfilling a specific role. 1. Rope Master, the head of the operation, responsible for overseeing the entire rope-making process. Often a seasoned craftsman, the rope master was akin to a ship captain, leading with authority and a flair for dramatic storytelling. 2. Fiber harvesters, tasked with collecting hemp and flax, these individuals worked in the fields during harvest season. Their motto: "Don't get tangled in the weeds." 3. Twisters and braiders, skilled artisans who specialized in transforming raw fibers into ropes. They often worked in pairs, creating a rhythmic motion that resembled a dance of sorts, albeit one that involved a lot of grunting and sweat. 4. Quality inspectors, appointed by the guild, these inspectors were responsible for ensuring that every rope met the established standards. Known for their discerning eyes, they could spot a weak knot from across the room, or across a longship, for that matter. 5. Record keepers, the unsung heroes of the guild, tasked with maintaining meticulous logs and inventories. Often overlooked, they could recite the history of every rope made in the past decade, likely putting even the most seasoned bard to sleep. ##### technical specs and inventories, 950-1066 AD. With the bureaucratic structure in place, it was essential to maintain a detailed inventory of all ropes produced, along with their specifications. 1. Technical specifications. Diameter. Ropes typically ranged from 1 to 3 inches in diameter, depending on their intended use. Length. Average anchor ropes were about 100 to 150 feet long, long enough to ensure that a ship could anchor safely in various depths. Load capacity. A well-constructed anchor rope could handle loads of up to 2 tons, which is roughly equivalent to 2 adult walruses, surely a consideration for any Viking captain. 2. Inventory management. Storage. Ropes were stored in dry, ventilated areas to prevent rot. Each rope was tagged with a wooden label, indicating its length, diameter, and the date of construction. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a rope QR code. Periodic audits. The Rope Guild mandated biannual audits of all inventories to ensure that no rope went missing. Any discrepancies could result in a fine or, worse, a stern talking to from the rope master. ##### conclusion. While the Viking Age is often celebrated for its epic battles and legendary voyages, the protocols surrounding anchor rope untangling reveal a different kind of heroism. The meticulous attention to detail, the bureaucratic structures, and the skilled roles dedicated to this seemingly mundane task highlight a culture that valued both practicality and craft. In a world where a single knot could mean the difference between a safe harbor and a watery grave, it's clear that the Vikings understood the importance of their anchor ropes. So next time you find yourself tangled in your own mess, be it a rope or a metaphorical situation, remember that even the mightiest of warriors had to stop and untangle their gear before charging into battle. After all, in the grand scheme of history, it's the little things that often keep us afloat. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. The Viking longship, an impressive vessel that roamed the seas, plundering, trading, and generally being a nuisance to coastal villages. One might think that the crux of Viking life revolved around raids, feasts, and epic sagas sung by bearded men around the fire. But, dear reader, let us not forget the unsung hero of the seafaring experience, the anchor rope. Yes, that twisted, knotted, and often downright rebellious piece of nautical hardware deserves its time in the limelight. Today, we embark on a journey through the absolutely riveting, if not a tad absurd, landscape of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols, with a side of historical hilarity, regional nuances, and a sprinkling of grotesque anecdotes that would make even the most hardened Norse warrior raise an eyebrow. ### regional variations over time. First, let's set the stage. The Viking Age, roughly 793 to 1066 AD, was a time of exploration and expansion, and with it came a delightful array of regional variations in how anchor ropes were handled. In the fjords of Norway, where the waters are as deep as the Norse myths themselves, the anchor rope was often made of robust plant fibers that could withstand the cold, unforgiving embrace of the North Sea. Local edicts mandated that ropes be at least 3 times the length of the ship, because no one wants to be that poor soul left at the mercy of the tides, gnawing on the remnants of their pride as they drift helplessly into the sunset. Meanwhile, in the warmer climes of the British Isles, where the Vikings frequently made their presence known, and often unwelcome, the anchor ropes were sometimes fashioned from wool. Yes, wool. This might sound absurd, but it was believed that the soft fibers would be easier on the hands during those long hours of untangling, and who doesn't want to keep their calluses to a minimum when preparing for a raid? Of course, the British councils frowned upon this practice, leading to laws that dictated the use of more robust materials. No woolly anchors for raiders, they decreed, leading to a back-and-forth tug-of-war that rivaled any Viking battle. ### laws, edicts, taxes, ledgers. The bureaucracy of yore. Viking society, while famed for its warrior ethos, was also home to a surprising amount of regulation. The laws surrounding anchor ropes were numerous and often mind-numbing. In one such edict, known as the Rope Taxation Act of 872, ship owners were required to keep meticulous ledgers detailing the length, material, and condition of their anchor ropes, lest they be subjected to hefty fines or worse, being forced to listen to the grumbling of local fishermen for an entire fortnight. These ledgers, often adorned with elaborate Viking runes that would make any historian swoon, contain such thrilling details as the number of knots in each rope, the frequency of untangling incidents, which could be alarmingly high, the weather conditions during said incidents, because who wouldn't want to know if a rogue wave played a part in the Great Tangle of '89? The tax collector's job wasn't just about counting gold, it also required a keen eye for the condition of the anchor ropes. Inspectors would often show up unannounced, demanding to see the ropes in all their knotted glory. If a shipowner failed to comply, they risked being branded a rope rogue, a title that could haunt one's family for generations. It was a time when the phrase, "It's not personal, it's just business," truly took on a new meaning, because nothing says, "I love you," like a government official rifling through your tangled mess of hemp and seaweed. #### logistics and supply chains. Now, let's talk logistics. The Vikings were not just brutish raiders, they were also early pioneers in supply chain management. They knew that a well-organized fleet required more than just a thirst for adventure, it needed a plan. The anchor rope was a vital component of this plan, and its untangling protocols were treated with the same seriousness as a battle strategy. Viking shipyards were buzzing hubs of activity, where craftsmen would weave together fibers with the same precision as a bard stringing together verses of epic poetry. However, the logistics of transporting these ropes could be a real headache. Longships were not exactly designed with storage in mind, and it was not uncommon to find ropes coiled haphazardly in the hold, waiting for the moment when they would conspire to create the most elaborate knot known to man. In one particularly ill-fated expedition to the shores of Ireland, a Viking crew found themselves ensnared in a massive tangle of anchor rope after a particularly boisterous night of revelry. The ship was docked, the crew was celebrating, and the winds were whipping, causing the ropes to dance like they were at an impromptu Viking rave. When morning came, they discovered they were not only late to meet their fellow raiders but had also lost a third of their supplies to the chaos of knotted fibers. The incident was recorded in the annals of Viking history as the Great Rope Fiasco of 942, and it became a cautionary tale recounted by mothers to their unruly children: "Behave, or you'll end up like the crew of the Blue Dragon, tangled in their own anchor rope." #### record keeping with lots of specifics. As amusing as it may be to think of Vikings wrestling with ropes, the truth is that their record keeping was surprisingly advanced for the time. In an age where most knowledge was passed down orally, the Vikings took it upon themselves to document their anchor rope protocols in great detail. One particular account, known informally as the Scroll of Knots, was discovered in an unassuming corner of a dusty archive in Oslo. This scroll detailed the various methods for untangling ropes, categorized by severity of the tangle. The classifications included: 1. The simple snarl, a minor tangle that could be resolved by mere mortals with a fair amount of patience and a good sense of humor. 2. The doubleback dilemma. This required the combined efforts of at least 3 crew members and a strong commitment to teamwork. If you weren't careful, it could lead to some unintended wrestling matches. 3. The full-body tangle, a situation so severe that it often led to temporary insanity. A Viking would find themselves wrapped up like a mummy, and the only way out was to cut the rope, an act that was frowned upon for obvious reasons. 4. The grotesque entanglement. This was so rare that it was more myth than reality, often attributed to the gods playing tricks on hapless sailors. The scroll also listed specific knots that should never be used for anchoring, most notably, the infamous sailor's nightmare, a knot that was said to have claimed the lives of several seafarers due to its sheer complexity. One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. As we reach the climax of our nautical narrative, it's time for the piece de resistance, a borderline grotesque anecdote that encapsulates the absurdity of the Viking relationship with anchor rope. In the year 1000, a Viking ship known as the Raging Sea Serpent set sail from Norway for a raid on the British Isles. All was well until the crew, in a moment of careless celebration, and perhaps a few too many cups of mead, managed to tangle the anchor rope so severely that it became a living organism of chaos. Legend has it that one particularly ambitious sailor, eager to prove his mettle, decided to dive into the mess to rescue the anchor. As he swam deeper into the tangled fibers, he emerged with something shocking, not just the anchor but a haphazard collection of items entangled in the rope, a boot, a long-lost fishing net, and, most grotesquely, a severed goat head. The goat head had been part of a sacrificial offering made to appease the gods, and it had somehow found its way into the anchor rope during an ill-fated storm. The crew erupted in laughter and horror, as the poor sailor emerged from the depths, covered in seaweed and goat remnants, forever dubbed Goathead Gunnar, and celebrated in tales for generations to come. Conclusion. So there you have it, a comprehensive yet whimsically irreverent exploration of the Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. From regional variations and bureaucratic nonsense to logistics and the peculiarities of record keeping, it's clear that the Vikings had their fair share of challenges, both on the seas and in their tangled anchor ropes. And let's not forget the goat head, a reminder that even in the world of Norse warriors, the absurd could always rear its head, leaving us with tales that would make any bard proud. So, the next time you find yourself entangled in your own troubles, be it with ropes, life, or the occasional goat head, remember the Vikings, and perhaps opt for a little more patience, and maybe a touch less mead. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Ah, the Viking Age. A time of daring raids, heroic sagas, and the relentless pursuit of glory on the high seas. Yet, amidst the blood-soaked tales of conquest and adventure, there lies an often overlooked aspect of Norse maritime culture, the meticulous protocols for untangling longship anchor ropes. Yes, in the swirling chaos of pillaging and plundering, our fierce Norsemen had to contend with a far less glamorous foe, knotty ropes. Join me on this slightly irreverent journey through the regional variations, laws, taxes, logistics, and record-keeping of a subject that would make even the most seasoned historian raise an eyebrow. Regional variations over time, a knotty affair. Picture it, a fleet of longships, their dragon-headed prows slicing through the icy waters of the North Atlantic, each vessel manned by a crew of rugged warriors ready to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. Yet, even these fierce marauders found themselves grappling with the tangled mess of anchor ropes. It quickly became apparent that not all regions embraced the same approach to untangling. In Norway, where the fjords carved their way into the hearts of the people, the untangling protocols were rooted in practicality. Vikings would gather around the anchor line like a gaggle of geese, each taking a role akin to a designated knot whisperer. The first step involved the Lofoten loop, a time-honored technique passed down through generations. A gentle tug here, a cautious twist there, and, voila, the rope would yield, much like a reluctant fish caught in a net. Meanwhile, across the North Sea in Denmark, the protocols were a tad more theatrical. Viking sailors fancied themselves masters of the dramatic arts, and the untangling of anchor ropes became a performance worthy of a stage. There were songs, chants, and even interpretive dances performed while loosening the knots. A knot would be approached with the reverence of a sacred relic, as if it held the secrets of the cosmos within its twisted fibers. Sweden, on the other hand, took a more utilitarian approach. Known for their no-nonsense attitude, Swedish Vikings eschewed theatrics for the 2-minute rule. If a knot couldn't be untangled within 2 minutes, the rope was deemed unsalvageable and promptly sacrificed to the sea. The approach was ruthless, but efficient, ensuring a steady supply of anchor rope from local merchants who were more than happy to sell new lengths at inflated prices. Laws, edicts, and taxes, the knotty bureaucracy. As Viking society evolved, so too did the need for laws and edicts governing the tangled mess of anchor ropes. Yes, you heard that right. Somewhere between the plundering and pillaging, a bureaucratic system emerged to regulate the untangling of these maritime nuisances. In the 10th century, King Harold Bluetooth, not to be confused with the wireless technology, though perhaps he'd have invested in it had he lived in our time, decreed an edict regarding anchor rope maintenance. The knotting code mandated that every ship must have a designated rope master, responsible for overseeing the untangling protocols. Failure to comply resulted in hefty fines, akin to a modern-day speeding ticket but with significantly more knots involved. Taxes were levied on the purchase of new rope, with a portion of the funds directed toward the establishment of knot schools. Yes, you read that right. Knot schools were the Viking equivalent of community colleges, where aspiring sailors could learn the fine art of rope management. Tuition was often paid in livestock or, if one were particularly cunning, in well-tangled lengths of anchor rope that could later be sold for a tidy profit. The records of these transactions, however, would leave even the most diligent accountant scratching their head. The rope ledger, a meticulously kept book that tracked the purchase, maintenance, and untangling of each ship's anchor rope, was a marvel of bureaucracy. Entries were often written in runes that would require a Rosetta Stone level of deciphering for modern scholars. One particularly amusing entry read, "Thor's hammer rope, tangled thrice, loosed twice, sold to Bjorn at a 20% discount for the embarrassment of a tangled knot in public." Logistics and supply chains, the knotty network. As Viking raids expanded into new territories, the logistics of anchor rope supply became a tangled web in itself. The demand for high-quality rope surged, leading to the establishment of trade networks that would make even the most ambitious modern supply chain manager raise an eyebrow. Rope was not merely a commodity, it was a lifeline, and sourcing it required cunning and strategy. The Norsemen quickly realized that different regions produced ropes of varying quality, leading to a veritable marketplace of options. For instance, the hemp ropes from the shores of Britain were considered superior to those produced in Iceland, where the rough climate often led to subpar materials. Enter the rope barons, wealthy traders who monopolized the anchor rope market. These individuals had a vested interest in ensuring their ropes stayed untangled, lest their customers demand refunds, or worse, take their business elsewhere. The rope barons employed a cadre of knot collectors, whose sole job was to scour the seas for tangled ropes, untangle them, and resell them at a premium. It was a cutthroat business, with rumors of sabotage and espionage running rampant. After all, nothing says trustworthy merchant like an anchor rope that has undergone a rigorous quality assurance process. Hashtag record keeping, the Naughty Chronicles. In a world where the spoken word often held more weight than the written, the meticulous record-keeping of Viking anchor rope untangling protocols was nothing short of a marvel. The Knot Chronicles, a series of scrolls detailing the history of knot tying and untangling, were passed down through generations. These records were not merely lists of knots and their respective untangling techniques, they included anecdotes, personal stories, and the occasional bit of gossip. Did you hear about Olaf? He lost an arm trying to free a particularly stubborn knot, was perhaps the most frequently referenced tale of woe. One scroll detailed an extraordinary incident involving a famous longship called the Sea Serpent. During a raid on the British Isles, the crew became so entangled in their anchor rope that they accidentally grounded themselves just off the coast. The ship became a sitting duck, much to the amusement of their enemies, who gathered on the shore to take bets on whether the Vikings would manage to free their vessel or simply end up capsized by their own incompetence. Hashtag a surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now, dear reader, we arrive at the piece de resistance of our journey through the untangling protocols, a surprisingly grotesque anecdote that will leave you both horrified and amused. Legend has it that during one particularly ill-fated expedition, a Viking ship encountered an unusually aggressive school of fish known for their sharp teeth and penchant for biting anything that moved. As the crew prepared to drop anchor, the fish, sensing an opportunity for chaos, swarmed the rope as it splashed into the water. What ensued can only be described as a scene of carnage. The crew, unaware of the impending aquatic onslaught, found themselves struggling not only with the tangles of their anchor rope but also with the biting fish that had turned their anchor line into a buffet. The tangled mess of rope and fish became a peculiar sight, with the crew flailing about in a futile attempt to save their anchor while simultaneously avoiding becoming fish bait. Eventually, the Vikings managed to free their anchor and sailed away, albeit with a rather fishy reputation. The story made the rounds in taverns, where it was recounted with great flair. "Beware the fish of the North Sea," they would say, "for they bite as fiercely as any Saxon." Hashtag conclusion, a naughty legacy. As we unfurl the tangled threads of Viking history, we find that even the most mundane aspects of life, like untangling anchor ropes, hold the power to reveal the unique character of a people. From regional variations in protocols to the intricate web of laws, taxes, and logistics, the Viking commitment to managing their maritime challenges was nothing short of impressive. So, the next time you find yourself grappling with a knotted piece of string or a rogue shoelace, take a moment to reflect on the Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. While their exploits may have been filled with valor and glory, even the fiercest of warriors had to face the less glamorous side of seamanship. And who knows? Perhaps a bit of Viking ingenuity will help you conquer your own knotty challenges, without the biting fish, of course. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Ah, the Viking longship. A marvel of nautical engineering, capable of slicing through the waves like a knife through butter, provided, that is, that the anchor rope doesn't resemble a bowl of spaghetti after a particularly stormy night. One might think that such a seemingly mundane task as untangling anchor rope would go unnoticed in the grand tapestry of history, overshadowed by daring raids and epic sagas. But, dear reader, prepare yourself for an odyssey into the absurdly specific and slightly irreverent world of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Regional variations over time. Let's start with the regional variations, shall we? The Vikings were not a monolithic group. They spanned several territories, including Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and parts of what is now England and Ireland. And just like how you can't trust a Swede with a meatball recipe if you're a Dane, you can't expect their anchor rope untangling methods to be uniform. In Norway, for instance, they employed a rather rustic technique that involved an elaborate ritual where the ship's crew would gather in a circle, chant, "Unwind, you wretched rope," while sipping mead from horn cups. This was usually followed by a great deal of grunting and flailing, which, while not particularly effective, certainly added to the Vikings' robust image. Meanwhile, in Denmark, the approach was decidedly more bureaucratic. The untangling of anchor rope was so formalized that it became a matter of law. The Vikings, in a rare moment of administrative zeal, established the Edict of the Untangled Line, which mandated that all ships must keep their anchor rope in a state of optimal tangle-free readiness. Failure to comply resulted in a hefty fine. Imagine a Viking captain being summoned to pay taxes on a knotted piece of rope. Talk about a blow to the ego. In the British Isles, things took an even stranger turn. The Vikings, already infamous for their pillaging, decided to introduce a taxation system for untangling services. A tangle tax, they called it. Locals were horrified at the prospect of paying for what they deemed a natural state of affairs. "Why would I pay for the inevitable?" they asked, scratching their heads. But the Vikings, with their infamous knack for bureaucracy, insisted that every knotted rope must be documented in the town ledger. The irony? The very act of recording the tangle would often lead to further tangling. Some might say it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers. Now, you might be wondering how exactly the Vikings managed to keep track of all these laws, edicts, and taxes concerning their anchor ropes. Picture it. A lineup of burly Norsemen, quills in hand, scribbling furiously in ledgers by flickering torchlight. "Tangled again, Olaf," one might chortle, while another would mutter, "Just wait until the tangle tax inspectors come by." The Viking Age saw the birth of meticulous record-keeping, albeit in a rather chaotic manner. Each longship had its own ledger, often containing a dedicated section for anchor rope management. This included columns for the number of tangles, the time taken to resolve them, and, of course, the associated tax penalties. Imagine flipping through a dusty old tome only to find entries like Olaf, 3 knots, 2 hours, tax owed, 1 goat. The absurdity of it all was not lost on the crew, who often had to weigh the benefits of a quick untangling session against the potential for taxation. But it wasn't just about keeping the king's coffers full. The records also served as a sort of competitive leaderboard among ship crews. Every time a ship managed to untangle its anchor rope in record time, the captain would be lauded with great fanfare. "Aye, Sigurd, you've untangled that beast in under 10 minutes. Here's a tankard of mead." But failed to achieve the same feat, and one could expect a chorus of jeers and taunts. "Can't even handle rope, can you, Bjorn?" Logistics and supply chains. As if this tangled mess of laws and ledgers weren't enough, the Vikings had to contend with the logistics and supply chains surrounding their anchor rope. You see, the Viking economy was a complex beast, with trade routes stretching across Europe and into Asia. Anchor rope was a hot commodity. After all, you couldn't exactly raid a monastery without a reliable way to anchor your longship. Enter the rope merchants, notorious for their shrewd bargaining skills and, as legend has it, a penchant for deceit. Stories abound of Viking captains who, after a long voyage, would return to their homelands only to discover that they had been sold premium anchoring rope that was, in fact, nothing more than several short pieces of twine tied together with great care. Imagine the embarrassment of a Viking crew, ready to plunder, only to watch their longship drift away with a rogue wave, the anchor rope disintegrating into a sad pile of yarn. The logistics of rope supply also included the sourcing of materials. Hemp and flax were the preferred fibers, but good luck finding a reliable supplier. As trade networks evolved, so did the quality of the rope. The introduction of foreign materials led to debates over the authenticity of Viking rope. Was it still Viking if it didn't come from the fjords? The answer, of course, was as tangled as the ropes themselves. Record keeping with lots of specifics. Let's delve deeper into the specifics of record keeping, shall we? Each Viking ship had a designated scribe, often the least physically capable crew member, who would rather write than lift heavy oars. This scribe was responsible for meticulously documenting every aspect of the untangling process, which included a surprising amount of detail. An anchor rope not of the double figure-8 variety, approximately 2.5 feet from the anchor point, requires an average of 15 minutes to resolve, one entry might read. Another could detail the use of the classic Viking twist method for particularly stubborn knots. They even had a system of notations, akin to modern-day emojis, to indicate the severity of the tangle. A simple knot might be marked with a smiley face, while a catastrophic cluster would earn a grimacing skull. And then there were the reports of tangle incidents, which were essentially a form of bureaucratic gossip among ships. Captain Eric's crew spent a full hour untangling their rope due to improper storage. One must ask, do they even know how to coil? These reports circulated widely, leading to a sort of competitive culture where crews would brag about their untangled times, with all the pride of a modern-day athlete boasting of their marathon finish. One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now we arrive at the piece de resistance, the anecdote that will make you question your lunch. In one particularly notorious incident, a Viking crew returned from a successful raid with a rather unusual haul, an assortment of fine silks, spices, and, as fate would have it, a rather unfortunate seal. What happened next is a tale for the ages. The seal, apparently quite enamored with the Longship's anchor rope, decided to make itself comfortable and tangled itself amid the coils. As the crew struggled to untangle the rope, they were met with the indignant squawking of the seal, who, in its high-pitched protest, flopped around the deck like a fish out of water. The crew, already weary from a long voyage and perhaps a tad too steeped in mead, found the whole situation utterly hysterical. "Looks like we've caught ourselves a seal of approval for our anchoring skills," one crew member joked, while another quipped, "At least it's not a goat tax." The crew eventually managed to free the seal, which promptly swam off, leaving behind a legacy of laughter and a valuable lesson: not all tangles are worth untangling. The story soon spread like wildfire, becoming the stuff of legend, an emblem of the Viking spirit that celebrated the absurd, the grotesque, and the utterly ridiculous. Conclusion. In conclusion, the untangling of anchor rope may seem a trivial footnote in the grand saga of Viking history, but it reveals so much more. It speaks to the complexities of Viking life, the role of bureaucracy in their society, and the absurd lengths to which they went to maintain order amidst the chaos of their seafaring adventures. So, the next time you find yourself facing a tangle, be it in your life, your relationships, or your yarn stash, remember the Vikings and their anchor rope protocols. After all, if they could find humor in a knotted mess and a seal on their deck, perhaps we can, too. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. The Viking longship, sleek, majestic, and absolutely not designed to be anchored in any manner that could be described as convenient. The Norsemen, famed for their plundering prowess and penchant for raiding, were also unwittingly in a long-term relationship with one of the most frustratingly mundane tasks known to maritime history: untangling the anchor rope. While you might think the Vikings spent their days battling for honor and glory, they also had to contend with an anchor rope that seemed to have a mind of its own. So, let's dive into the surprisingly intricate protocols surrounding this knotty issue, exploring regional variations, laws and taxes, logistical nightmares, meticulous record-keeping, and a surprisingly grotesque anecdote that may just leave you shaking your head. ### regional variations over time. As the Vikings spread their sails from the fjords of Norway to the rivers of Russia, one might assume that their methods of untangling anchor ropes would be consistent. Spoiler alert, they were not. Just like the varying dialects of Old Norse, the techniques for managing anchor rope tangles evolved with regional peculiarities. In Norway, the traditional approach involved a mix of brute strength and the occasional prayer to Thor, hoping that the god of thunder would intervene and free them from the clutches of the demonic rope. The method was simple: gather a group of burly Norsemen, find the nearest alehouse, and develop a collective strategy over a few rounds of mead. The ensuing strategic discussions, were often more about the quality of the ale than the quality of the untangling technique, which had mixed results. Travel east to the Scandinavian coasts of Sweden and Denmark, and you'd find a slightly more refined approach. Here, the Vikings had begun to dabble in protocols that resembled something akin to a rudimentary assembly line. A designated rope officer, not to be confused with the rope whisperer, who was a more mystical figure, would oversee the untangling process and maintain a strict hierarchy. The rope officer would allocate tasks. You, with the impressive biceps, go for the stubborn knot. You, with the knowledge of runes, consult the local shaman. Over time, these regional variations led to an odd patchwork of techniques. The Norwegians might have employed a yank and hope method, while the Danes preferred a more methodical approach involving careful documentation of each knot's origins in lengthy ledgers, lest they summon the wrath of the maritime gods with an untidy rope. #### laws, edicts, taxes, ledgers. Ah, the ever-joyous realm of Viking law. You might think that the Vikings had more pressing concerns than the state of their anchor ropes, but you'd be mistaken. As any good Viking knows, when you're not raiding monasteries, you're debating the finer points of maritime legislation. Around the late 10th century, the Althing, the world's oldest parliament, located in Iceland, decided it was time to address the issue of untangling anchor ropes. The Rope Edict of 976 was born, mandating that all longships must have a designated rope officer, complete with a set of protocols to ensure swift untangling. Failure to comply resulted in a hefty fine, payable in sheep or, for the particularly unfortunate, a week's worth of being the designated rower. Meanwhile, in Denmark, King Harald Bluetooth, not to be confused with the wireless communication technology, instituted rope tax, a levy on all merchant vessels based on the length of their anchor rope. This led to all sorts of creative taxation strategies. Some shipowners would resort to using shorter ropes, leading to a series of unfortunate grounding incidents that were often blamed on the evil spirits of the sea. And let's not forget those meticulous ledgers. Viking record-keeping was surprisingly sophisticated for the time. They kept track of everything from successful raids to the number of sheep sacrificed to appease the gods, and yes, even the number of knots tied in their anchor ropes. These ledgers were often more colorful than one might imagine. On this day, we lost 3 men to an anchor rope tangle and 2 sheep to the local tax collector. #### logistics and supply chains. When you think of Viking logistics, your mind might immediately drift to grand tales of conquest and glorious battles. However, the untangling of anchor ropes required a surprisingly complex supply chain. The rope itself was made from various materials depending on local resources, ranging from flax in one region to hemp in another. The supply chain for rope was nothing short of a logistical nightmare. Imagine orchestrating a vast network of rope makers across the coasts of Scandinavia, all while managing the demands of a raiding expedition. Viking longships would often carry multiple types of anchor ropes, each with its own unique tangling tendencies. Thus, when a ship docked after a long voyage, the crew would have to navigate a veritable jungle of ropes, each vying for their attention like an overenthusiastic puppy. Moreover, the Viking penchant for raiding came with its own challenges. After a successful raid, the crew would often find themselves with a surplus of ropes, captured from enemy vessels or purchased from local traders, leading to a haphazard mix of materials. The result? A chaotic scene of tangled ropes that would require the combined efforts of the entire crew to sort through. #### record keeping with lots of specifics. If you thought the Vikings only kept records of their conquests, think again. The untangling of anchor ropes was meticulously documented in ship logs. These records varied from the practical to the outright absurd. For instance, one log entry from a longship called the Sea Serpent detailed an entire day spent on rope untangling, day of the Great Knot, 6 men lost to the chaos. For knots identified, 2 surrendered under the weight of brute force. One was named Thor's Revenge. It was a stubborn little beast. These logs included specifics like the type of knots encountered. The fisherman's twist was a favorite, the time taken to untangle each knot, and even the morale of the crew throughout the ordeal. Crew morale dropped significantly at the sight of the eternal tangle, leading to an impromptu drinking contest that resulted in 2 men being tossed overboard. The Vikings even had an entire lexicon dedicated to knots, with terms like the devil's snare and the kraken's embrace that would make any sailor chuckle while simultaneously sobbing over their tangled mess. ###One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now, for the piece de resistance, a tale that will linger in your mind long after you've read this. Picture this: it's a stormy night in the year 982, and the crew of the Berserker has just returned from a successful raid. The ship is laden with treasure, but the crew is exhausted and, as fate would have it, the anchor rope has decided to throw itself into a fit of knots, defying all known laws of physics. As the crew struggles against the tempest, a particularly ambitious crew member named Olaf decides that brute force is the answer. He yanks at the rope with all his might, shouting in frustration. In a moment of sheer bad luck, or perhaps divine intervention, he slips, falls, and gets his head stuck in the very loop of the anchor rope he was attempting to untangle. The rest of the crew, caught between laughter and horror, decides to take a vote. Do they save him or let him become a living warning against the dangers of angry rope? They opt for a rescue, but not before someone grabs a nearby mug of ale and shouts, "Raise your horns for Olaf, the man who tangled with the rope and lost his dignity." After a chaotic rescue, Olaf emerged, head spinning and dignity in tatters, but with a newfound respect for the anchor rope. He became something of a local legend, known forever as Olaf the Untangler, a moniker that ensured he never lived down that fateful night. ###conclusion. So, there you have it, the surprisingly intricate and utterly mundane world of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. From regional variations to legal edicts, from logistical nightmares to meticulous record keeping, the untangling of anchor ropes was a task that, while often overlooked, played a crucial role in the day-to-day lives of Vikings. And let's not forget the charming anecdotes that remind us that even the fiercest warriors had to grapple with the absurdities of life, one knot at a time. So, the next time you find yourself in a tangle, remember Olaf and his unfortunate encounter with the rope. You might just find a newfound appreciation for your own mundane struggles. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. Ah, the Viking longship. A majestic vessel, a floating testament to the Norsemen's prowess on the high seas, and a veritable marvel of marine engineering. But let's not get too carried away with the allure of dragon-headed prows and bloodthirsty warriors. Behind the shimmering facade of Viking maritime might lies something far less glamorous, the anchor rope. More specifically, the protocols for untangling it. Yes, dear reader, the history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols is a treasure trove of mundane minutiae that could put even the most seasoned historian to sleep. But fret not. We shall navigate these choppy waters with the same audacity as a Viking raider, and I promise to keep you awake with a few surprises along the way. ### regional variations over time. Let's dive into the murky waters of regional variations in anchor rope untangling protocols. The Vikings, as we know, were not a monolithic society but rather a patchwork of tribes and clans, each with its own customs, dialects, and, yes, untangling techniques. In the fjords of Norway, for instance, the local longship crews favored a method known as the fjord flip. This technique involved a series of deft, wrist twist motions to disentangle the rope with all the flair of a seasoned dancer. Meanwhile, in the windswept shores of Denmark, the approach was decidedly more pragmatic, the rope rip. Here, Vikings would simply pull on the rope until it gave way, often accompanied by the sound of collective grunting that would make even the most stoic of Norse gods cringe. As these techniques evolved over time, they became enshrined in local laws and edicts. In 872 AD, King Harald Fairhair, who was apparently more concerned with knotty problems than knotty hair, declared that all longships must adhere to a standardized untangling protocol to avoid chaos on the high seas. This decree mandated the three-pull rule, which stipulated that every sailor must attempt to untangle the rope 3 times before resorting to the more drastic measures of rope rip. The irony, of course, is that the three-pull rule was often the source of more chaos than it prevented. ### laws, edicts, taxes, ledgers. Now, as with any bureaucratic endeavor, especially one involving Viking longships, there came a slew of laws, taxes, and ledgers. One can only imagine the tedium of Viking tax collectors, wagging their fingers at shipowners for failing to keep proper records of their untangling efforts. In 911 AD, the newly established Duchy of Normandy imposed a rather audacious anchor rope tax. This tax required longship owners to pay a fee based on the thickness of their anchor rope. The thicker the rope, the more taxes owed. It was a classic case of, the more you have, the more we take. The ledgers kept by scribes of the time are an absolute goldmine for historians, or perhaps a headache, depending on your perspective. One particularly riveting entry from a ledger dated 915 AD reads, Jarl Bjorn the Bumbling was found guilty of failing to follow the three-pull rule. As punishment, he must now untangle the anchor rope of all ships docked in the harbor for 3 moons. Now, That's a punishment that could make even the most hardened warrior weep. The combination of tedium and embarrassment was enough to drive many a Viking to reconsider their life choices. ### Logistics and supply chains. The logistics and supply chains of Viking longship operations were as intricate as the knots they were desperately trying to untangle. Anchor rope came from various sources, each with its own quirks and challenges. The finest ropes were made from hemp, procured from the fertile fields of the Baltic region. However, the journey from the field to the ship was fraught with peril. Ropes would often become entangled during transport, ironically, a fate that awaited the very items meant to prevent such tangling at sea. To tackle this logistical nightmare, Viking ships employed a specialized role known as the rope wrangler. These unsung heroes were tasked with ensuring that the anchor ropes were properly coiled and stowed before embarking on any voyage. Of course, this was easier said than done. Picture a team of burly Vikings wrestling with a massive coil of rope, each one convinced they had the best technique, only to end up in a heap of tangled limbs and frayed fibers. In an attempt to streamline operations, the Vikings developed a rudimentary supply chain management system. This involved tracking the usage of anchor rope from the moment it was cut in the fields to its final untangling on the high seas. Ledgers were filled with meticulous records of rope length, thickness, and even the number of knots per foot, a metric that, let's be honest, is about as riveting as watching paint dry. Yet, despite their best efforts, the Viking longship crews often found themselves in a conundrum when it came to supply. The demand for quality anchor rope frequently exceeded supply, leading to a thriving black market. Rumor has it that a certain rogue Viking named Eric the Elusive became infamous for trading counterfeit ropes made from inferior materials. His ropes, while cheap, were prone to snapping, leading to many a sailor being unceremoniously dumped into the icy waters. ### Record keeping with lots of specifics. Record keeping. The cornerstone of any well-functioning society, or at least the kind that doesn't want to drown in a sea of chaos. The Vikings, while often caricatured as brutish warriors, were surprisingly meticulous when it came to record keeping, especially about their anchor rope protocols. In the early 10th century, the Knot Codex was introduced, a comprehensive guide detailing various types of knots, their uses, and the requisite untangling techniques for each. This codex became the go-to manual for any self-respecting sailor. The section on the double fisherman's knot alone contained 25 variations, each with its own untangling method. If you ever thought that learning to tie your shoes was complicated, try mastering the intricacies of Viking knots. Moreover, Viking scribes had a penchant for embellishment. One particularly thrilling entry in a record from 934 AD describes a legendary untangling competition between two rival crews. In a display of unparalleled skill, the crew of the Fjord Fury faced off against the Sea Serpent in a race to untangle 100 feet of anchor rope. The competition ended in chaos, with both crews entangled in their own ropes, leading to a draw and a night of revelry fueled by mead. It's hard to tell what was more impressive, the untangling skills or the ability to turn a disaster into a night of debauchery. One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Now, for the piece de resistance, a surprising and borderline grotesque anecdote that would make even the most hardened Viking squirm. In 956 AD, a notorious Viking longship named the Knotty Problem was sailing back from a raid when disaster struck. Mid-ocean, the crew discovered that their anchor rope had become hopelessly entangled, and in a fit of desperation, they turned to the local remedy for such predicaments, the anchor rope exorcism. This bizarre ritual involved the ship's captain donning a ceremonial headdress made from the fallen feathers of seagulls, which, let's face it, sounds more like a fashion faux pas than a spiritual endeavor. He would then proceed to chant incantations while waving a sword over the rope, all the while the crew looked on in a blend of confusion and horror. But the true grotesqueness revealed itself when the crew, in a misguided attempt to appease the sea gods, decided to sacrifice a goat. Yes, a goat. The unfortunate creature was tied to the anchor rope, and as the captain shouted his final incantation, the crew pulled on the rope with all their might, resulting in a catastrophic failure of both the rope and the goat. The rope snapped, sending the crew tumbling overboard, and the goat, well, let's just say it met a rather grisly fate. In hindsight, many historians believe this incident marked the beginning of a long-standing superstition among Viking sailors: never mix untangling protocols with sacrificial rituals. Conclusion. So there you have it, the not-so-glamorous saga of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. From regional variations to laws, taxes, and even a goat sacrifice, this history is a rich tapestry woven with the threads of human folly, ingenuity, and a dash of the grotesque. Next time you find yourself faced with the daunting task of untangling something, be it ropes, cables, or even the mess of your own life, take a moment to appreciate the Viking spirit. For if they could face the high seas and a goat's untimely demise, surely we can tackle our own knots with a bit of humor and perhaps a glass of mead. Scowl. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. While the grand saga of Viking exploration, pillaging, and settlement has captured the imagination of many, the less glamorous aspects of their maritime culture often go unnoticed. Among these, the protocols surrounding the untangling of anchor ropes may appear trivial at first glance, yet they reveal a complex tapestry of societal norms, minor figures, and even petty regulations that govern daily life aboard Viking longships. This document delves into the nitty-gritty of these protocols, revealing the fascinating details that underscore the mundane aspects of Viking life. Minor figures and petty rules. In the harsh and unforgiving environment of the North Sea, where storms could arise without warning and rocky shores lay in wait, the untangling of anchor ropes was not merely a task, it was a ritual imbued with significance. Among the crew of a longship, a position known as the rope keeper emerged, albeit without much prestige. This individual was responsible for maintaining the anchor ropes and ensuring they were ready for deployment. However, the rope keeper's role was often undermined by a convoluted hierarchy of petty rules. For instance, it was established in the early 10th century, during the reign of King Harold Bluetooth, that the rope keeper must not only untangle the ropes but also document each incident of tangling in a logbook. This logbook, often referred to as tangle tales, specified the circumstances surrounding each tangle and the resultant delay. The rope keeper could be reprimanded if the logbook did not meet the expected standards of detail. This led to the emergence of absurdly specific regulations, such as 1. Type of knot *. The rope keeper had to classify the knot types involved in the tangle, sailor's knot, bowline, or the increasingly rare and often misused, bishop's lament, knot. 2. Weather conditions *. Each entry had to note the weather conditions at the time of tangling, calm seas, turbulent waves, or the wailing winds of Odin. 3. Crew attitude *. An assessment of crew morale, which could range from spirited to moody, was another aspect to document. While these regulations may seem trivial, they reflect a culture that valued order and accountability, even in the most mundane of tasks. ###Case studies with dates and lists. To illustrate the absurdity and depth of these protocols, we can look at specific case studies from Viking longships. 1. The Hrafnsvik incident, circa 955 AD. During a routine anchoring near the Isle of Hrafnsvik, the longship Skidbladner found its anchor ropes hopelessly tangled. The rope keeper, a man named Bjorn the Knotty, documented the incident as follows. Knot types * bowline, 3 instances, sailor's knot, 2 instances, bishop's lament, 1 instance. Weather conditions * calm but overcast. Crew attitude * moody, attributed to lack of mead that evening. The incident led to a 2-hour delay in departure, and Bjorn was later fined 3 drachmas by the local chieftain for failing to prevent the tangling. The tale of Bjorn's misfortunes became a source of amusement among the crew, yet it highlighted the importance placed on untangling protocols. 2. The Shield Maiden's unraveling, circa 980 AD, a notable case involved Freydis, a shield maiden, who took over the responsibilities of the rope keeper following Bjorn's misadventures. During a storm near the Orkney Islands, her crew's anchor rope became tangled. Freydis's meticulous log included knot types * sailor's knot, 4 instances, double fisherman's knot, 1 instance. Weather conditions * severe storm conditions, winds described as the Banshee's wail. Crew attitude * desperate, as fear of capsizing loomed large. Despite the chaos, Freydis managed to untangle the ropes in less than an hour. Her swift actions earned her a place in the annals of Viking lore as the Rope Whisperer, although her fame was short-lived compared to her legendary exploits in battle. 3. The Sailing with Snags, circa 1000 AD, the longship, Drakkar of the North, encountered a peculiar incident where the anchor ropes were found tangled with seaweed during their journey to Vinland. The rope keeper, named Eirik the Fumbling, recorded knot types * seaweed entanglement, 1 instance, sailor's knot, 5 instances. Weather conditions * clear skies, oddly tranquil for the season. Crew attitude * amused, leading to jovial songs about Eirik's misadventures. This particular case became a cautionary tale, reminding future rope keepers to inspect the area before anchoring. ### comparisons to other regions. While the Vikings took untangling protocols to a level of absurdity, similar practices existed in other maritime cultures, albeit with varying degrees of seriousness. In the Mediterranean, for example, the Phoenicians relied heavily on skilled navigators who had a more pragmatic approach to anchor rope management. They emphasized efficiency over detailed logs, often employing a simple division of labor to ensure swift untangling. On the other hand, the Japanese maritime traditions incorporated a level of artistry into their rope handling. The art of senninbari, for instance, involved intricate knot designs that were believed to bring good fortune. This contrasts sharply with the Viking approach, where aesthetic considerations were often subjugated to the need for functionality. ### Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological finds have shed light on the Viking practices surrounding anchor ropes and untangling protocols. In the 20th century, a remarkable discovery was made at the burial site of a Viking longship in Norway, where a well-preserved set of anchor ropes was unearthed. These ropes, made of finely woven hemp, still displayed various knot types, providing direct evidence of the knots documented in the ancient logbooks. Moreover, tools used for untangling have been discovered, including small wooden hooks that resembled fish gaffs. These tools were likely employed to pry apart stubborn knots. The presence of these artifacts underscores the importance of untangling protocols in daily Viking life, as well as the challenges they faced at sea. ###2 Rhetorical questions. As we delve deeper into the history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols, one cannot help but wonder, what do the trivialities of everyday life reveal about a culture that is often defined by its epic sagas of conquest and exploration? And in a world where order was paramount, how might the tangled ropes of Viking longships serve as a metaphor for the complexities of human existence itself? ###Conclusion. The protocols surrounding the untangling of anchor ropes may seem inconsequential when compared to the larger narrative of Viking history, yet they encapsulate essential aspects of life in this seafaring culture. The minor figures, petty rules, and case studies highlight a society that valued accountability, order, and even humor in the face of daily challenges. From the meticulous logs of rope keepers to archaeological insights, the legacy of these protocols serves as a testament to the complexities of Viking maritime culture, and a reminder that even the most mundane tasks can hold historical significance. As we continue to explore the Viking era, let us not overlook the tangled threads that weave together the stories of their extraordinary lives. The uneventful history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols. When one thinks of the Vikings, images of fierce warriors raiding coastal settlements, their longships slicing through the waves, often come to mind. Yet, behind the epic sagas and tales of conquest lies a surprisingly mundane, yet intricately organized, aspect of Viking life: the protocols for untangling anchor ropes. This seemingly trivial topic reveals much about the societal structure, daily life, and even the humor of the Norse people. ### Minor figures and petty rules. At the heart of Viking maritime culture were the longship skippers, known as foreigner, who wielded considerable influence over their crews. However, it was often the lesser-known figures, such as the togger, rope specialist, and the tanati, a title humorously assigned to the crew member most prone to creating tangles, who played pivotal roles in the untangling protocols. The togger was responsible for the maintenance and management of all rope-related tasks. This included checking for wear and tear, ensuring proper coiling, and, of course, untangling knots. It was said that a togger could identify the type of knot simply by the way it lay against the wood of the ship. The togger's role was critical, as poorly maintained anchor ropes could mean disaster, whether it be dragging the ship unexpectedly into perilous waters or causing a crew member to trip and fall overboard, much to the amusement of their shipmates. The noddy, in contrast, often faced a barrage of good-natured ribbing. The title was not official, but it was a term of endearment used to remind the crew that even the most skilled sailors could create a mess. In fact, it was not uncommon for the crew to keep a tally of the number of knots created by the noddy during a journey. A particularly naughty crew member could find themselves the subject of a humorous skaldic poem recited during feasts, immortalizing their ineptitude for generations. To avoid chaos, several unwritten rules emerged regarding how to address tangles. One such rule, known colloquially as the tangle touch test, dictated that any crew member who touched a tangle without the togger's permission would have to buy mead for the crew. This practice not only ensured that the togger maintained authority over the ropes but also fostered a sense of camaraderie and collective responsibility among the crew. ####Case studies with dates and lists. Historically, there are several documented cases of how these protocols were implemented, often in humorous or disastrous circumstances. One such instance occurred in the summer of 865 CE, during the famed Great Heathen Armies campaign in East Anglia. The Viking leader Ivar the Boneless, known for his cunning and resourcefulness, was preparing to set sail after a successful raid. However, when it came time to weigh anchor, the crew discovered that the anchor rope had become hopelessly tangled. The crew's attempts to untangle the rope led to a frantic and chaotic scene. As the tension mounted, Ivar reportedly shouted, "If we cannot handle a simple rope, how shall we conquer kingdoms?" This moment became an infamous anecdote among the crew, leading to the creation of the Ivar incident list, which catalogued various tangles and their solutions during the campaign. This list not only served as a practical guide for future voyages but also became a source of humor and morale for the crew. Another notable case occurred at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066 CE. Although this battle is primarily remembered for its significance in English history, it also had a rather amusing episode involving anchor rope. As the Viking forces prepared for the confrontation, a minor skirmish broke out between two rival factions of the crew over who would be responsible for untangling the anchor rope. This led to a series of comical accusations and challenges, resulting in a temporary ceasefire as the crew settled the matter with a friendly contest of knot-tying skills. Comparisons to other regions. The protocols for untangling anchor ropes among the Vikings found parallels in other maritime cultures, though often with unique regional twists. In the Mediterranean, for example, the ancient Greeks developed a complex system of rope management, emphasizing the role of the steersman in overseeing all rigging and rope-related tasks. The Greeks had a term, anaptixis, which described the act of untangling knots. Unlike the Vikings' more community-focused approach, Greek practices often involved more hierarchical oversight, with the steersman having the final say on all maritime matters. In contrast, the Polynesians, known for their exceptional navigational skills, took a different route. Their approach to rope management was deeply tied to the spiritual understanding of the ocean. Ropes were often blessed by priests before embarking on a voyage, and any tangles were interpreted as a sign of displeasure from the sea gods. This spiritual connection added a layer of reverence to their maritime practices, differing significantly from the Vikings' more pragmatic and often humorous approach. #Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological discoveries have shed light on the Viking approach to anchor ropes and their untangling protocols. In 1957, a significant find at the Oseberg ship burial site in Norway revealed a treasure trove of artifacts, including various types of ropes and knots. Among these were remnants of thick hemp ropes, some over 30 meters in length, which were likely used for anchoring the ship. The presence of these ropes suggested a well-organized system of maritime activities, where careful attention was paid to the state of the ropes. Additionally, the archaeological record indicates that some Viking ships had specialized storage compartments for ropes, ensuring that they were kept dry and free from tangles. This reflects a level of sophistication in organizing maritime equipment that goes beyond simple functionality. Moreover, a 2018 excavation at a Viking settlement in York uncovered a series of wooden boards inscribed with knot diagrams. These diagrams served as a rudimentary manual for sailors, detailing various knotting techniques and untangling strategies. This discovery not only highlights the practical nature of Viking seamanship but also suggests a more formalized approach to rope management than previously thought. Rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. How many Viking battles were won or lost not through the clash of swords but through the simple act of managing an anchor rope? Could it be that the fate of nations hinged on the ability to untangle a rope rather than the prowess of a warrior? Conclusion. While the Viking Longship anchor rope untangling protocols may seem insignificant in the grand tapestry of history, they provide a fascinating glimpse into the everyday lives of these seafaring people. Through the minor figures who managed these ropes, the petty rules that governed their actions, and the humorous case studies that emerged, we come to understand a culture that valued community, camaraderie, and the occasional laugh amidst the chaos of life at sea. In this light, the Viking legacy is not solely one of conquest and exploration but also one of the mundane yet essential tasks that shaped their society. The importance of a well-managed anchor rope resonates beyond the waves, reminding us that even the most extraordinary lives are often built upon the quiet, unremarkable routines that keep the world afloat. The uneventful history of Viking Longship anchor rope untangling protocols. When we think of the Viking Age, images of fierce warriors, epic sea voyages, and legendary sagas often come to mind. Yet, Nestled away from the more glamorous tales of conquest and exploration lies a surprisingly mundane but equally fascinating aspect of this culture: the protocols surrounding the untangling of anchor ropes for their longships. This seemingly trivial task reveals much about the everyday lives of the Norse people and their maritime practices, offering a window into the minor figures and petty rules that govern their activities on the high seas. #### Minor figures and petty rules. While the great Viking chieftains like Ragnar Lothbrok and Harald Hardrada are often celebrated, the unsung heroes of maritime operations were the lesser-known individuals responsible for maintaining the fleet. Among these were the ropemakers, artisans who specialized in crafting durable rope from materials such as hemp or even animal sinew. These craftsmen not only had the expertise to produce strong and reliable anchor ropes but also maintained strict protocols for their use and care. One such protocol involved the management of the tangle master, a designated crew member responsible for the organization and untangling of anchor ropes. This role, though seemingly trivial, was crucial in preventing chaos during docking or anchoring. The tangle master had to adhere to a series of minor rules that governed the handling of ropes. No rope should touch the ground, all tangles should be reported immediately, and any knots that could not be easily undone were to be left for the next day. Such rules may seem petty by modern standards, but they were critical for maintaining order and efficiency during voyages. ###Case studies with dates and lists. To better understand the implications of these untangling protocols, we can examine a few case studies from various Viking expeditions. 1. The 1000 AD expedition to Vinland. During their voyages to North America, Norse sailors encountered various challenges, one of which was the handling of anchor ropes in unfamiliar waters. A documented incident from this expedition describes a particularly tangled mess of anchor line that delayed the crew for hours. The tangle master, a man named Bjorn, was noted for his strict adherence to protocols, ensuring that every crew member participated in the untangling process. The crew formed a human chain, where each member was tasked with holding a segment of the rope while others worked through the knots. This cooperative effort not only reinforced the importance of teamwork but also highlighted the need for clear communication and adherence to protocol. 2. The 850 AD raids on England. Historical records from this period reveal that Viking crews often faced dire consequences when anchor ropes became tangled during raids. One raid in East Anglia led to a disastrous retreat due to a tangled anchor line that caused the Longship to drift dangerously close to enemy shores. A subsequent investigation by the local chieftain found that the crew had neglected the tangle master's authority, leading to a ban on any crew member from touching the anchor ropes without explicit permission. This event not only reinforced the importance of the tangle master but also led to a series of educational sessions on rope management held in the evenings to ensure compliance with established protocols. 3. The 900 AD journey to the Mediterranean. In a less documented case, a Viking longship sailing to the Mediterranean encountered a storm that dislodged the anchor. When the crew attempted to retrieve it, they discovered that the anchor rope had tangled around the rudder, rendering the ship nearly uncontrollable. The tangle master, a seasoned sailor named Eric, had to employ an elaborate series of untangling techniques that he had learned from years of experience. This incident became legendary, leading to the creation of an oral tradition that commemorated Eric's skill and reinforced the necessity of thorough checks on the anchor rope before setting sail. ### Comparisons to other regions. While Viking Longship anchor rope untangling protocols may seem unique, they can be compared to maritime practices in other regions of the world. For instance, the Polynesians, renowned for their navigational prowess, also had strict protocols for managing their double-hulled canoes. Their use of ropes made from coconut fibers necessitated a similar hierarchy of roles, with designated crew members responsible for the maintenance of their lines. In contrast, the Mediterranean sailors of the time often relied on a more laissez-faire approach to rope management. Accounts from ancient Greece suggest that while they had methods for dealing with tangles, they lacked the formalized roles and protocols seen in Norse practices. This difference may be attributed to the varying maritime cultures and the distinct environmental challenges each faced. The Vikings, with their focus on raiding and exploration, required a level of discipline and efficiency that was less critical in the relatively calmer Mediterranean waters. ### Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings have provided invaluable insights into Viking maritime practices, including the management of anchor ropes. The excavation of the Gokstad ship in Norway, one of the best-preserved Viking longships, revealed remnants of anchor lines that indicated the use of complex knots and braiding techniques. Analysis of these ropes has shown that they were not only functional but also adorned with decorative elements, hinting at the cultural significance of rope-making in Viking society. Additionally, artifacts from the Viking settlement at Longship Meadows in Newfoundland reveal that the Norse used local materials to craft their ropes. This adaptation underscores the ingenuity of the Vikings in utilizing available resources, while also reinforcing the need for effective rope management protocols in unfamiliar environments. ### Rhetorical questions. As we delve deeper into the mundane yet critical aspects of Viking life, one must ask, how many untold stories of maritime mishaps and heroic untangling efforts lie buried beneath the grand tales of Viking raids and conquests? Furthermore, what can the seemingly trivial protocols of the past teach us about the importance of order and discipline in our own chaotic lives today? The history of Viking longship anchor rope untangling protocols serves as a reminder that even the most unremarkable tasks can have profound implications. The minor figures and petty rules that governed these practices were instrumental in shaping Viking maritime culture, fostering a sense of teamwork and discipline that would ultimately contribute to their remarkable successes as explorers and traders. In conclusion, while the Viking Age is often romanticized as an era of adventure and conquest, the reality of daily life for these seafarers included the management of anchor ropes, an unglamorous yet essential aspect of their maritime endeavors. Through a closer examination of the protocols surrounding untangling these ropes, we uncover a rich tapestry of human experience, filled with minor figures, petty rules, and lessons that resonate even today. The Vikings may be celebrated for their boldness and bravery, but it is their attention to detail and commitment to protocol that truly set them apart as a remarkable seafaring culture. The Uneventful History of Viking Longship Anchor Rope Untangling Protocols. In the grand tapestry of Viking maritime history, one might assume that the most riveting stories revolve around daring raids and heroic conquests. Yet, nestled within this narrative is a surprisingly mundane yet crucial aspect of their seafaring life: the protocols for untangling anchor rope aboard longships. While seemingly trivial, the procedures surrounding this task reveal much about the social dynamics, cultural norms, and practical concerns of Viking society. Minor figures and petty rules. Though large figures like Eric the Red and Leif Erikson dominate the historical narrative, it was often the lesser-known individuals who shaped the day-to-day operations of Viking longships. Take, for instance, Helga the Knot Master, a minor historical figure who, according to sagas, was renowned for her expertise in rope management. It is said that Helga had devised a set of rules that governed the untangling of anchor ropes, referred to as Helga's Codex. This codex included minor details such as 1. The order of untangling. One must never attempt to pull the rope from the anchor end first, as it could lead to further entanglement. Always start from the deck and work downward. 2. The role of the deckhand. Deckhands were to be assigned specific knots to untangle, based on their abilities, with novice crew members forbidden from touching the more complex sea serpent knot. 3. The three-twist rule. If a deckhand encountered a rope not requiring more than 3 twists to free, they would have to call upon the ship's philosopher, typically the oldest crew member, to provide wisdom and potentially a traditional chant to aid in the untangling. Such regulations, while seemingly quaint today, played a vital role in maintaining order and efficiency on board, allowing Viking crews to respond swiftly to both calms and storms. Case studies with dates and lists. Numerous case studies highlight the significance of these protocols. One notable incident occurred in 874 CE during a particularly tumultuous voyage from Norway to Iceland. The longship Freya encountered a fierce storm that caused the anchor rope to tangle beyond recognition. The crew, under the leadership of Captain Bjorn the Unyielding, found themselves in a precarious situation. The case study documents the following incidents. Date: July 5, 874 CE. Situation: storm forced the ship to anchor hastily. Actions taken: crew members followed Helga's Codex, assigning roles based on experience. Outcome: despite the tangled mess, the ship was able to untangle the rope within an hour, allowing them to escape the storm and continue their journey. Another case in 920 CE aboard the longship Skaldsinger showcased the importance of communication in untangling procedures. A young deckhand, Olav, mistakenly attempted to untangle the rope using brute force instead of following the established protocols, resulting in a catastrophic failure of the anchor. Date: May 14, 920 CE. Situation: miscommunication and lack of adherence to untangling protocols. Actions taken: the crew immediately gathered to review Helga's Codex. Outcome: a new emphasis on communication was established, leading to the creation of a weekly untangling meeting to discuss best practices. Comparisons to other regions. The Viking protocols for untangling anchor ropes stand in stark contrast to those of other maritime cultures. For example, in the Mediterranean, where the Phoenicians thrived, sailors relied heavily on swiftly cutting entangled ropes rather than untangling them. This method, while effective, often resulted in the loss of valuable materials and led to significant waste. In contrast, the Vikings, with their deep respect for craftsmanship and sustainability, emphasized the importance of preserving rope integrity. Their commitment to untangling reflected a broader cultural ethos that valued resourcefulness and careful management of resources. Similarly, the Polynesians, known for their celestial navigation and sophisticated boat-building techniques, had their own untangling rituals, often infused with spiritual significance, showcasing how different cultures approached the same practical challenges in unique ways. Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings have shed light on the Viking approach to anchor rope management. Excavations of Viking ship graves, such as the Oseberg ship discovered in Norway, revealed not just the ships themselves but also an array of ropes, knots, and tools that would have been used for anchoring. The ropes were meticulously constructed from plant fibers, and some even bore the marks of the knots used in various protocols. One particularly fascinating discovery was a set of rune-inscribed stones near the site that hinted at the existence of a Viking knot festival, where sailors gathered to share techniques and celebrate successful untangling endeavors. This suggests that the art of knot management and untangling was not only practical but also a source of community pride and cultural expression. Rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. What secrets do knots hold, and how might the tangled histories of our ancestors teach us about the interconnectedness of human experience? If the Vikings, renowned for their ferocity in battle, dedicated such care to the mundane task of untangling ropes, what does that say about their understanding of order and chaos in a world rife with uncertainty? In conclusion, the protocols for untangling Viking longship anchor ropes may seem uneventful at first glance, but they reveal a complex interplay of culture, community, and practicality that is vital to understanding the Viking Age. From minor figures with their quirky rules to case studies that highlight the importance of these practices, the seemingly trivial has much to teach us about the past. The next time you encounter a knot, whether in rope or life, remember the Vikings and their unwavering commitment to order amid the chaos of the sea. And that's a wrap. We dove deep into the world of topic, and if you thought it couldn't get any more fascinating, think again. Did you know that, surprising closing fact? Mind-blowing, right? If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more mind-expanding content, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Ready for more? Check out our related episodes on related topics to keep the adventure going. And hey, if you want to drift off while soaking in all this knowledge, turn on loop so this episode plays on repeat until you dream big. Sweet dreams and see you next time.